What made you make the shift to farming and organic farming at that?
That made us question what we want to do or what we would pay for doing all our lives. And the answer came up as farming. Growing food and being amongst animals and biodiversity just felt more holistic. In the last 40-50 years, everything has changed. No one wants to give their daughters to farmers.
Money in farming, as you just mentioned. Is it that, we don't have the right tools? Is it that productivity is lacking? Where do you see this challenge and why is it so?
I believe farmer output is controlled. But as a farmer, though if there is a right value outside, I'm not being able to export my commodities outside to somebody.
So would you blame the Green Revolution for the state of Indian farm?
Over the last 40-50 years has got us to a situation where farming is not viable. Soil fertility has gone completely down. And you have to relook at things and work on the basics.
Have you seen evolution of customer taste, customer preferences?
Anybody wants access to good food, but do I trust that person to give me good, clean food is a question.
India's relationship with food is changing. What we eat, where it comes from, who grows it, how it reaches our plate. These are no longer invisible questions. They're economic questions, health questions, climate questions. At the same time, agriculture in India stands at a crossroads. Soil health is declining, water stress is intensifying, farmer incomes remain fragile, and yet consumer awareness has never been higher. So what does it take to build a food brand that doesn't just sell products, but attempts to reimagine the system itself? Today's conversation is about the future of Indian agriculture through the lens of people who chose to step away from corporate careers and step back onto the farm. I'm your host Sanjeev Krishan, and our guest today is Satyajit Hange, co-founder Two Brothers Organic Farms. Let's get into it. Satyajit, thank you for being here. It really means a lot and wonderful to have you.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So Satyajit, let's just start from the very beginning. You and your brother Ajinkya had very lucrative careers going on. What made you make the shift to farming and organic farming at that?
So both me and Ajinkya, we are farmers' sons.
Right.
So our father's a farmer.
Right.
And we were born in that village where we
Right.
farm now.
Right.
And educated in Pune in a boarding school. Because parents felt farming has no future. Not, even societal respect and no economic future. And so they put us in a boarding school and we took our education out there and then started working the first, so as to say, jobs in our entire generation of farmers. So I was working with Citibank for some time and he was working with HSBC.
Right.
But our holidays were spent on the farm. So the summer holidays and Diwali holidays were spent on the farm. And we had seen that life, but we were very conditioned to, not coming back out there. And so we did a job for 4 years. And then when this existential question came up, that do we want to do this all our lives? The answer was no. So we decided, 12 years back that let's leave this and try farming. We loved farming. So that's what got us back to farming.
Right. But should we say, or should we think that this was a lifestyle choice that you made, or it was a decision because you said that you loved farming as well, that you saw yourself not doing a corporate job and the love for farming sort of got reignited, if I may?
Yeah, the pull from farming was very strong. Right. We had experienced the city life. We had experienced the job life that all our lives our parents were telling us to do.
Yeah.
So we had ticked it off and we lived it for 4-5 years. And then when we questioned ourselves whether we want to do this all our lives, we had seen, for example, the senior most position in the bank. And we had visualized maximum we can become somebody like that person and whether we want to live the life he's living in.
Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong about it or, right or wrong. But for us, it just didn't fit in. And that made us question what we want to do or what we would pay for doing all our lives. And the answer came up as farming. So we thought, let's give it a shot. On the farm, when we were there, it felt a connection of sorts. you feel completely relaxed and one with nature, and the physical energy is at high. You're thinking better when you're out in the open, you're working, you're physically working on the farm. And growing food and being amongst animals and biodiversity just felt more holistic. So it's a very subjective thing, I feel, but that's what pulled us to the farm.
So I think, what you just mentioned, coming back from corporate lives to farming, one, of course, not many people would have done that. But also, I think you made a very deep comment about, the fact that you got pulled into a boarding school initially by the farmers, lack of respect by your farmer family, if I may call it so, lack of respect, etc. Why do you think that happens? I mean, is there a societal issue that is there? Or is it that it doesn't have the economic returns that it used to at one point in time? Why do you think that happens from India?
So I've been fortunate to see all of this through 4 generations. In the sense, I asked my mother on how my dad's dad did farming and how was societal respect at that point of time. And she told me that a couple of say decades back, 40, 50 years back, the preference for giving daughters was always for farmers first, and then for business, and then for a guy who did a job. In the last 40, 50 years, everything has changed. Yeah. Today, that is, opposite. No one wants to give their daughters to farmers. And this has happened because of the fact that the money in farming has gone away. In the last 50, 60 years, I believe, especially after the Green Revolution, the money in farming has kind of reduced to making it absolutely unsustainable to do farming. And that's taken out the respect, that's taken out everything that attracts somebody to a profession.
So I still have one more question on that, because that's an important one, because when we look at from offices, when we look at India macro, we say that, okay, India contribution, agriculture contribution to India's GDP is not at that level, etc. So many people are involved in farming, but productivity is low and stuff like that. So just one more follow-up question on that. Is it productivity? I mean, there's no money in farming, as you just mentioned. Is it that we don't have the right tools? Is it that productivity is lacking? Is it that the enablement is lacking? Where do you see this challenge, and why is it so that in spite of being an agrarian economy in earlier years, we are still not agriculture still doesn't contribute a significant proportion?
Sadly, so it starts off with the infrastructure that's invested in making agriculture more viable, be it irrigation facilities, be it electricity, be it other allied support that government gives. I think the investment in that has not gone up drastically. Right. Secondly, I believe control of agricultural goods, especially under acts like Essential Commodities Act and stuff, and the government wants to make food, I wouldn't say cheap, but more affordable to masses, because they drive them in power. And for that, I believe farmer output is controlled. So like, for example, today there's a global demand for wheat. Yeah. As a farmer, I can get $2,000 for 100 kgs of wheat. But the market in domestic, I think it's around $22 a kg. Why is it not allowed to export? Because wheat prices domestically will rise if this commodity goes outside. So I've always felt that everybody services. So you're doing a job, you're doing any other business, the world is your playground. Nobody obstructs you from getting the best rate. But as a farmer, though if there is a right value outside, I'm not being able to export my commodities outside to somebody. So right. That is one of those aspects. And secondly, and lastly, I believe not enough scientific interventions, investments in doing farming with a lot of data and with a lot of scientific inputs has been missing over the last couple of years.
Right. Which is very true, and I think we have seen that. I think if you look at the productivity per acre of farm in India, it's still very, very low than many other parts of the world. And I think the value part that you mentioned also. So, of course, it was a very, I'm sure it was a bold decision on your part and your brother's part to actually come back. But then also moving from farming to organic farming and that. How did the idea of getting into farming, and that too organic, come up?
So for us to select farming, we had no data on the macros. I am an economics student, but I knew what was the situation of farming from data point. But that didn't de-incentivize us to get into farming. We got into farming because we had a lot of passion towards farming, and we were looking at it from a personal point where we could enjoy doing what we love.
Right.
Once in that landscape, like they say, the grass is always green on the other side, from the city that looked greener, but once you were in that landscape, we realized this is not sustainably green. Right. Over the last 50, 60 years, the productivity of those farms has been reducing and not increasing. The inputs has been growing, but the cost to do farming has risen. The output has reduced. The reasons being that soil fertility has taken a beating.
Right.
In the last 60 years, the introduction of chemical fertilizers like urea and phosphates and many other weedicides and pesticides and herbicides have nearly finished the soil microbiology, which is essential for making soil fertile, due to which the productivity has come down. It's come to a point where it's a very tight situation right now. Mm-hmm. So once we realized that, it was a no-brainer that at some point of time in the next 15, 20 years, this profession would be completely unsustainable if productivity fell below 30, 40 tons an acre for sugarcane, for example. A generation back, the productivity was around 80, 90 tons an acre. Today it's come to 30 tons an acre, with inputs cost going, quadrupled in the last 40 years. And then we started doing research on what is essentially required to make soil fertile.
Right.
And we realized all these years, over the last 2, 3, 4,000 years, farmers farmed in a sustainable fashion. They always enriched soil and worked on soil fertility, and then they reaped those harvests and ensured that the land passed on to the next generation was even fertile than what they had inherited. And the reasons for this is, the essentials for this is to keep, putting organic matter back into the soil, which farmers are not doing it in the last 30, 40 years. And that's how we shifted to organic, because organic is basically replenishing soil fertility. And there are many techniques around it, how you do it. And we figured out if we don't do this, we won't have a farm that would produce anything in the next 20 years. And that's how we switched to organic.
So would you blame the Green Revolution for the state of Indian farms?
Not wholly, but to an extent, yes, because what they prioritized was output of food. One is what they missed out is long-term implications of what they're introducing, which is now what we're facing in our health, So these newly introduced varieties, which give you more yield, were nutritionally lesser deficient compared to varieties that farmers had been growing over the last couple of generations. Second is they required, chemical fertilizers as inputs for them to grow better.
Yeah.
And today those seeds have been modified to such an extent by the seed companies that, later on you have to take their fertilizers and their weedicides so that you'll have a good harvest.
Yeah.
So all of this, over the last 40, 50 years has got us to a situation where farming is not viable. Soil fertility has gone completely down, and you have to relook at things and work on the basics.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think you started doing farm to table, and I'll come to that in due course. But we discussed a little bit on, the supply chain of farming, but even the distribution of it, right? I gather that you witnessed that the crop produce doesn't get the value that it possibly deserves. What were your initial experiences as you?
So I come from Western Maharashtra, and farmers majority grow sugarcane as a crop out there and bananas. So we started off doing sugarcane. Now the system is such that you enroll in the sugar factory, and the sugar factory takes the sugarcane and gives you the payment for it. I realized that the way they pay, it takes them 18 months to pay the farmer. So basically, the working capital is the farmer's raw material. Secondly, there are many instances where they're not paying the right due. These are cooperatives, not run very professionally. And due to all of this, you're not getting the right value that you should be getting. And when I look back for 50 years back, before the sugar factories came in, what were we as farmers doing with sugarcane? I realized my grandfather was making jaggery with sugarcane. And that was a final product, which is sold to the market in Gujarat or in Pune or Bombay. And today, in the last 40 years, because a factory has come in between, as a farmer, I've forgotten how to market my produce.
Right.
It's very easy. I'm sitting on my farm and the factory comes and takes my sugarcane. And then I'm dependent on the factory for my payments and stuff. And then that made us, start getting into making our own finished products
Right.
and selling it in the market. So that's how, the idea of making products and then selling them came about.
Right, right. So, this concept of, if I may call it so, forward integration in farming, and, we'll come to the branding aspects and many other aspects of it, including customer preferences and others. That must have been a Herculean task, because effectively you became, a B2C business, right? And, that's not an easy business at all.
Yeah, I would say that we were fortunate to be in the digital era. When we started making our produce and finding customers for it, social media was present.
Right.
Creating a website, an e-commerce website, was very easy.
Right.
You didn't have to go to a professional developer.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, we created a website on a platform called Shopify, which is plug and play completely.
Yeah.
And we created awareness and community through social media, which is our Facebook and Instagram pages.
Yeah.
And YouTube was where we put our content on awareness about farming and clean food.
Right.
And that became a natural way to get our customers. Doing offline has many challenges, when you're a small farmer or a small brand. But doing e-commerce, whatever scale you are, is very easy. So
Right.
I always say we're born in the digital era as a brand, and it was
Right.
easy for us to go e-commerce first.
Right, right. So let's just come to your journey as you became a B2C brand, if I may call it so. Customer preferences. Always a challenging thing, right? I know that there is a segment of population which would focus on organic content, and I'm sure that there are some others who might have also helped create the class, the category. But how big is that segment in your mind today? And do you think that requires certain support to create greater space for organic, which of course is good for the farms in turn as well?
Yeah, so that market is very big, with awareness rising due to social media, and especially post-COVID, the preference and demand for food that is not laden with chemicals, that's grown organically, is very high, or grown naturally is very high today compared to what it was 10 years back. I believe the top 2% of Indians as citizens can easily afford and would prefer this kind of food. Not to forget that everybody would want to get food that is not, that's chemical free. But there are challenges around pricing for them. That I feel the market is huge, with awareness growing and with chronic illnesses increasing. I believe that this is the future for food.
So would you say that organic food has some therapeutic ingredients as well, or enablements as well, which since you mentioned about let's say what you've been used to over the last 30 years?
Oh, absolutely, it has. It's a proven fact. It's, well documented and researched across the world today that, for example, 40 years back, the apples that were produced by farmers had 32x nutrition than apples that are produced today by farmers.
Right.
So anything grown organically, how it functions is, when your soil is organic in nature, the nutrients required by the tree, the microbes help make it available. So
Right.
your bacteria, fungi, nematode, protozoa, they make unavailable nutrients to available nutrients. And that's how a tree picks up those and, creates its fruits and whatever we eat as humans.
Right.
When it does it the natural way, the amount of nutrients is very high. When you actually grow food through the conventional practices of putting chemical fertilizers, the density of nutrition is very low.
Right.
To an extent where to get the same nutrition from apples, you have to eat 32 apples today. Whereas 30, 40 years back, one apple gave the same nutrition.
Wow.
Today, the apples that are grown give you a higher glucose spike compared to apples that were grown 40 years back. There's a wheat variety which we advocate and grow since the last 10 years, which we have got to the forefront. It's called Khapli or Emmer long wheat. It's a 5,000-year-old variety. In our homes, it was used for occasions. When we discovered that, we got it tested and we realized that it has 50% lower gluten and 50% higher fiber compared to the varieties we use all over India for wheat flour. And these widely used varieties came about after the Green Revolution because they wanted to increase yield. But what increased is not nutrition. The yield that increased was due to the increased gluten.
Right.
So anything grown organically, anything that has an heirloom link or an indigenous seed variety link, naturally has more nutrients, is more nutrients dense than something that's grown in the modern way.
So, there isn't enough awareness about these things, it appears, Satyajit. And I'm hoping that our interaction will hopefully create awareness. But, do you think that we have done enough over the years to create this awareness about stuff that
No,
you just
absolutely
mentioned?
not. We haven't done anything because no one measures food, and our quest for getting cheap food has made farmers use interventions, and most of the interventions are chemical based to give them a higher yield. Otherwise, they won't be able to sustain economically. And today the quest for getting food cheap and cheaper has led us in this situation where food is highly contaminated with chemicals, is not nutrients dense, and you have to have supplements to even get your daily nutrition and stuff. So that's a challenge today. The awareness is yet low, and very few people are doing it in this way. Even consumers, very few of them want to pay the right price of good food. Today, the awareness is coming about that instead of eating supplements, why don't we pay for the right food and get our nutrition from a daily dal, chawal, roti? Why do you have to change your plate and open a plastic pouch to eat a bar that gives you a protein or gives you some nutrient? Our forefathers, were physically strong and they ate the same dal, chawal, roti, but that roti came from wheat that was grown organically, a variety that was intrinsically good for your gut. The rice came from a variety that had low GI. The dals were protein rich. They're not the modified varieties that are existing today. They're 7x better in protein than the modern varieties. Your ghee came from milk that was, from indigenous cows, and ghee made the cultured way, which was more better for your gut. Today, ghee comes from cream, from large industrial practices. Milk is highly contaminated, comes from dairy farms that are designed to just give you milk as an output. So everything has become industrious. And that will feed you food that is bereft of nutrition.
So maybe I'm going to ask you what may be a controversial question, Satyajit, but there's a bit of a paradox I see. Agriculture is almost sacrosanct as a segment, right? It's like to be untouched. It is not to be taxed and so on and so forth at one end, etc. And you did mention the economics of it at the moment. And yet there isn't for, let's say for organic farming, organic agriculture and something which has health benefits and so on and so forth. There isn't, for everything that today there's an association or there is an advocate, if I may call it so, which talks about it. But again, I don't think that there is anything like this which is advocating, healthy agriculture practices. Why do you see this gap? How do you see this gap?
So there is no one, because it's a system. It's a system which is working, though if it has all of these lacunas at the back end where farmers are not, they hardly make money and consumers hardly get food that's with nutrition. But it's a system too large to change. It's a system where anybody, the government tries doing something, and if it backfires, like in Sri Lanka, the country tried going organic for tea, and it backfired, and they were in crisis. So I think it's too large for somebody to do something in 5 years. And that's the time period where I think every government wants change that can be seen. So it will take us at least 15-20 years to gradually change stuff and spin the entire model that's working right now, so that ultimately farming is sustainable and consumers get food that is rich in nutrition.
Right. Right. So then let's now come to, I think there is some work to be done there, but let's then come to the consumers, right, themselves. And while, I think I would still say that it's the whole organic thing is still in its very early days, has possibly a smaller TAM than, than the more regular stuff. But have you seen evolution of customer taste, customer preferences? There is ready to eat stuff, etc. I'm not sure how you think about some of those things. So there are various customer categories, and some of this is also about, easy availability, quick availability, and so on and so forth. So how do you look at the entire value chain and the customer preference?
So I have seen it up close where the demand for this kind of food is growing. We started 8-9 years back in a farmer's market out here in Bombay, in Mumbai and Bandra, where we put up 2 tables and were selling to a select few customers. We here do that because we love doing it. But from there, a monthly sale of addressing, say, 50 customers to now catering to around 8 lakh consumers across the world. I have seen it firsthand how food choices, food habits are changing. But there is one particular aspect which I would like to press on, and which is trust. It didn't change because, post-COVID, people are focusing on health. People were always focused on health. Post-COVID, it might have accelerated that thing, but the trust is missing. Anybody wants access to good food, but do I trust that person to give me good, clean food is a question. How do you develop that trust is something for brands for us to solve for, And also I've seen the number of people with these kind of businesses grow in the last 8-10 years. When we were operating, 8-10 years back, there were hardly a couple of brands. Today there are, I would say, a couple of 100 brands that are doing similar clean food work brands now.
So I think you mentioned this piece around trust, and that's very important. As a brand, we also, trust is the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest things that we provide to society at large. Why is it such a big issue? Why is it so hard for customers to? Are there, because the market is deep, but maybe as you were saying earlier, we all want immediate gratification. So there are a lot of fakes which come in, etc. And that actually erodes the credibility of a category, food category. Why do you think that's happening in food, which is such an important ingredient of our daily lives?
No, absolutely, because you cannot measure when you see what is in food, especially nutrition. At max, you can experience it when you have consumed it for a considerable amount of time. And that aspect makes people doubt, because on the face, both look same. A wheat looks same when you look at it from be it a indigenous variety like khapli or be it a modern variety, whichever we have today. Both look same on the face of it. Milk looks same, ghee looks same, oil looks same. But the details are different. When you make industrial scale oil that we eat as refined oil, and when you make oil that was made traditionally, which is more nutritionally rich, which is wood pressed oil, when you make a sweetener like white sugar, refining it through 40 chemical processes, and when you make jaggery, which is a natural sweetener, which doesn't have any chemical processes, when you make ghee the traditional way, the cultured way, on the face, products look same. But the making process is something you cannot show consumers. You couldn't show them earlier. Today with social media and stuff, you can give that kind of transparency. I think these challenges and some of greenwashing which happens by brands, has led to trust getting eroded. Yeah. I think marketing of food in the last 20-30 years, loosely using words like pure, natural, healthy, making it sound like it's clean, that's eroded customer trust for this generation at least.
Yeah, we've got from mineral water to bottled water. Case in point. But is there also a urban-rural divide, or a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 kind of a categorization? Is it that customers in certain cities are likely to be more favoring organic stuff? Is there something like that as well?
I haven't seen it. So like for us, 55% of our sale comes from metros.
Right.
In the metros, I count Bangalore and cities like Hyderabad and Pune.
Right.
And the remaining 45% comes from the tier 2 cities, the Ludhianas and Allahabads and Lucknow and Aurangabad and Nasik and Kolhapur.
Right.
So there is increased awareness, and the reason for this is social media again. The access to information and disposable income, in the cities amongst certain families also is very high, and they would love access to good kind of food also. So it's fairly spread across, and we've seen our data consumers from Jammu Kashmir to Kanyakumari. We have consumers all across India.
Right.
So, but if you ask me, village, really rural areas, demand from them is less because most of these rural communities have access to growing their own food.
Own their food, yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. But tell me something. I mean, do you do some analytics to find whether your customer base is becoming deeper, or the people who have now got hooked to, let's say, organic food, or who appreciate organic food, are they only consuming more as, and that becomes like a way of life for them? How do you monitor that?
no, I've seen the base becoming bigger.
Right.
Even forget words like organic and stuff, but every brand has a different way to appeal to a new set of consumers. For us, it was our story which acted like a hook in consumers' minds, where two corporate guys leave their jobs and come back to the farm, and it sounds very interesting. And then the way we created awareness on our platforms about farming. We did farming for 4 years before we sold anything.
Right.
So with our own hands, we learned about soil microbiology and intercropping and selecting the best varieties and making products. And then we kind of created awareness for that. And I believe consumers get attracted to brands, and brands in turn, create that entire sector, so as to say, because before we came in, there were 2 or 3 leading brands in India in the organic space, and if you see their revenue, it is more or less stuck or growing maximum at, I think, 15 to 18% year on year. But today, over the last, I think 6-7 years, we have been growing 80% year on year.
Right.
So where did this new market come from? It is already existing, but I think nobody kind of got to them. Today, through whatever appeals we make, through whatever educational awareness we do, people have sampled and liked, and when we look at our numbers, our retention rates are close to 70%. So, I mean, it's now showing up that people would reinvest. It's not a one purchase buy. We're in business for more than 7-8 years now. So, it's a strong, habit that's getting developed in the market now.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, just in terms of market expansion and stuff like that, I suppose most of it is voluntary, right? People making quote-unquote healthy choices. It's not as if like over-the-counter drugs or whatever. I mean, basically, it's not something which is prescribed to people. It is something which is really a voluntary choice, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a voluntary choice. Health is a subjective topic. Each one is, it's like exercise. You do it because you are more conscious about your health. You choose your food because you are individually more conscious about your health. And then you choose to invest in clean food because, you see the returns in terms of well-being.
Right. So now, just 2 follow-up questions, more on the economics of the business, and, as if I can call it now a business. So the first one really is that, creating a brand, which you have now done, you spent 4 years farming before you actually tried to sell something, and then of course there's a lot of effort in creating a brand for the value cycle to be completed. What was the harder part, the farming part or creating the brand part?
Good question, but honestly, if you ask me, I've enjoyed the process thoroughly. Both the processes. We loved farming. It didn't give us income those 4 years. It was barely enough to keep us sustainable.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, I would have paid to do that.
Right.
We just love being in the farm and solving those, farm level problems of irrigation, of intercropping, of, all those challenges which come out. Then I believe farming requires all the subjects culminate to farming, mathematics, physics, biology, chemistry, marketing, everything kind of culminates to farming, and it's such a subject which requires more of you. So we enjoy doing that. While building the brand, we never started off with an idea and a benchmark that, in so many years we'll be at this level and so much top line and stuff. We started off as selling to community and farmers markets. Every Sunday we used to travel from a farm which is 350 kilometers from here, set up stall, and we were never less of energy because we loved doing that. And then speaking to community and crowdsourcing ideas, the brand got developed very, I would say, by chance or word of mouth or subconsciously amongst consumers. And today we realize, oh, it's a brand. When I meet people, they're saying, it's a brand, but we never, so for till date, we have never spent a single rupee on branding. We have no brand ambassador. So, yeah.
I mean, both of you are brand ambassadors. Right?
By default, we have become one. But
yeah. But I mean, it's incredible, and it's you call it two brothers. I mean, which is very obvious at one level, but and it's very catchy. I mean, it also has that that family being, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, rarely do we see. I must say, rarely do we see two siblings do the same thing. So both of you have been very, very committed. And I want to come back to that aspect in a bit. But just on the economics part, I mean, do you see now you having scaled to a level where you think that it could encourage more people to take that, even if it is just for their livelihoods? I mean, would you say that now you've got to that stage?
Yes. So now we work with 7,000 odd farmers across India, and we have helped grow their incomes from anywhere between 25% to 40%. We have helped make the soil more fertile, more sustainable. The input costs have gone down because they're not buying anything from the market to put on their soil and the crops. And we have become an example for many farmers' sons that, farmers' sons can come back and do farming, create a brand and a business around it, and have become an inspiration to them. So, yeah, I mean, that aspect we see growing.
Yeah. So, on that one, and since you mentioned, becoming an inspiration, the challenge obviously remains that can we do this at scale? I mean, what is the scale that, two brothers, or for that matter, any other brand, how can you scale this? I mean, you can do, a prototype and then it becomes bigger and bigger, but what's my end game? I mean, where all it can go?
So today, the scale at which we operate, from a farmer's market table, doing 20,000 sales every month, to where we are now, and where we work with 5,000, 7,000 farmers, where we have in our organization now over 400 people and over 8 lakh consumers in the last 8 years. I believe we have just scratched the surface. We are not present offline.
Right.
Hardly 1%, offline. We're yet on our own website and the marketplaces and some quick commerce platforms. And I believe that the proof of concepts in the kind of farming we do, in the kind of farmer development that we do, the traceability aspect with farmers, the tech that we have enabled farmers and traceability for that, the manufacturing in-house that we do. When I promise you good food, and if I'm outsourcing it to an ex-player who's doing it for 20 other people, I am just making a false promise. So we decided to build all the manufacturing in-house. We do it very uniquely. So the manufacturing piece now is validated to sell on our own brand's name in a country like US, where we generate close to $1 million in revenue every month on our own website.
Right.
That itself, the easier way is to go B2B or to white label for somebody, but we decided no, we'll carry the brand, out there also. So all these aspects, all the 3 aspects, farmer development, manufacturing and brand building, I think the proof of concepts are more than well established now. And the teams that have joined us today, many professional people with pedigree, education and experience have joined and helping us grow. I think from here, we can easily, go 10x in the next 3 to 4 years' time. And as a country, I believe India is best positioned to maximize the clean food revolution, because I'll tell you, you go to European countries or the US, their land sizes are large. Yeah. On an average, it's around 4,000 to 5,000 acres per farmer. And they have to use machinery, they have to use monocropping, they have to use chemical interventions to get the best yield.
True.
And only 3% of the population does farming. In India, what we assume is a problem, 55% of the population is dependent on farming. And what we assume is another problem where land holding is below 5 acres. And we're trying to change this from the last 50 years. All the 5-year plans always wanted to migrate people from rural to urban. And we have not been successful at it, Hardly 5% of them have done this transition. 5-10% of them have done this transition. I believe what we look at as a challenge is a blessing in disguise. Today, the world needs good food. When you have to grow organically, you need small land parcels. You need more hands-on farms and machinery on farms. You need more indigenous seeds, which we intrinsically have in every region of our country. So I believe we can be the clean food bowl to the entire world.
Right.
These guys cannot do it themselves. We are uniquely positioned to do it. We should relook at this and incentivize, build structures, systems around this. For example, I happen to travel to a country called Bali, which is famous for tourism now. A couple of decades back, they didn't have any manufacturing. They didn't have any services. If they wanted to grow the economy and look at the West and ape the West, they would have put in large factories that would have polluted the country and given jobs to people. But they just looked at what they had naturally, and which was pristine beaches and forest areas. And they set up tourism as their prime, job generator. And today, I think 90% of the population depends on tourism. Without harming any part of the country.
Yeah.
So what seemed like a challenge, they used it and it became an asset. So what seems like a challenge to us today can be used to become an advantage.
Yeah. And again, as you said, you mentioned the amount of sales that you have in the US. There is certainly, I see big premiums being paid by overseas customers for what is certified organic in some level. So I think in that sense, the sky is the limit. And then I think I'm really, really glad that we managed to create a category and you've actually been at the forefront of it. And I suppose we need more of that. But the only one other question that comes to my mind is that, and again, possibly it goes back to the question on trust. Product integrity becomes very important because, you have to sustain it. You have to make it very sure. And you have a FPO and everything else which is there. But what are your own checks and balances which you do to make sure that you're able to create the trust in your supply chains, and which in turn hopefully creates a trust in your customers, etc.
Absolutely.
How do you?
So having done farming myself for 4 years, me and Ajinkya, we know what it takes to do farming naturally, sustainable farming. And then we've developed a team in-house,
Right.
whom we call the farmer relationship managers.
Right.
So there are, 24 of them who have done their masters in agriculture, who have been retrained to understand organic farming, and they handhold farmers now. So we have real people in the farm who monitor, who maintain traceability of that farmer, who handhold farmers from seed stage till harvest stage.
Yeah.
All those aspects are, we have developed a tech where all of that is punched into an app which maintains traceability of every farmer, which maintains a farm diary for every farmer. And that doubles down for a consumer as a QR code. So when you as a consumer scan any product of mine, you'll get dynamic traceability. You'll understand the farmer's name, on a Google map where his farm is located, photos and videos of the seeding process, the kind of interventions he's done for pest management, organically, for weed management, and for fertigation.
Right.
So all of that you see as a consumer. At the back end, there's a team that's maintaining that data by physically visiting the farmer. In the middle, when we take the produce to make it into a product, we have a laboratory in-house,
Okay.
which now consists of over 20 food scientists. So they're masters in food technology, who are working full-time. So every raw material is tested comprehensively. Every finished good is tested comprehensively for a variety of parameters. That apart, we have tie-ups with labs across the world. So recently we got certified as a glyphosate-free brand for our atta, for our ghee, for our jaggery range. Now, glyphosate is a chemical that's used in weedicides and herbicides that are sold by a very large chemical company worldwide, and 99% of farmers use this. Now, it's known to cause chronic ailments and especially diseases like cancer. In the US, there are lawsuits won by consumers, and that giant chemical company has had to pay the consumer for that. And we have certified ourselves to be glyphosate free. It's audited by a third party, which is a US based platform. So all these aspects, not only because the consumer trusts us, but this entire idea of Two Brothers came out from passion. It came out because we also wanted access to good food. We wanted to grow good food because we have a connection with the soil.
Yeah.
And I believe farmers are very sticky about the name. So this is our name on that product. I don't want anybody punching holes at it, and I don't want us to take shortcuts only for commercial growth.
Yeah.
So all these interventions, scientific interventions, ensure that a consumer can trust the brand and consume it without any suspicion or doubt.
Well, I can certainly tell you that you have got a new customer today. So I'm hopeful that there'll be many more who will join us. But the next segment, I really want to, and very briefly maybe talk about, you mentioned tech intervention. Now everything these days, there's tech intervention everywhere almost, right? And whether it is even our business, your business, and whether it's a productivity enhancements or any component of it. So today in your entire production chain, what all tech interventions are there?
Also, like the farmers that we work with or our own cow, shed and our cow population, we have tech that's installed on the cow shed, where both the times when milk is taken, it's tested for a variety of parameters on the spot, and the farmer gets a message immediately on the quantity, quality, and the rate that he's got for the day. The payments happen through that platform. On the 9th day, he gets his payment in his account. On the farm side, we work with some startups who have installed mobile weather stations,
right?
And that's connected to the grid, and it gives you all kinds of data on wind and rain and moisture and humidity, and it tells the farmer exactly when he needs to spray those organic interventions like Panchagavya and Dashaparani. On the business side and the farmer development side, we have blockchain, the app that we have developed, which maintains all farmer traceability data and which double downs as a traceability feature for consumers. It's developed on blockchain.
Right.
So that is a tech piece. When the raw material comes to my processing center, we have an ERP that's already installed, which weaves in from the warehousing, inventory, logistics, manufacturing, finance. And so data lies on one platform. And on the selling part, we use platforms, like I said, the e-commerce platforms, which are tech-enabled. For marketing, we are now taking and making sense of all this data and trying to put AI on top of this,
right,
to give us insights and business intelligence faster, out of which we can take decisions better.
Right. So it is quite a tech-enabled business already.
It is quite a tech-enabled, not for the fancy part, but for the practical usage part. Yeah.
Sure. So, one more question from me in this segment. I mean, if you were to think about, and you spoke about scaling the business and, what opportunities exist. But again, in the entire production change and, getting the product to, the customer's table, are there any risks that you foresee which you have mitigated, but which still bother you?
Oh yes, so all our products contained no preservative, additive, binders, fillers, colors, essence, perfume, none of that. Now, how do you preserve that food for longer periods of time? How do you transport it with the climatic conditions that we have across India? That's a challenge. All the know-how that exists in the market will advocate you using some of the other chemical preservative, or some of the other addition that can increase shelf life or that can sustain this supply chain. So that was a challenge we face and we daily face for many of our products that we try to solve for very creatively, very in our own way.
Right. So let me ask you another question. I mean, we spoke about advocacy earlier, but if you were to look at one or two ways in which civil society as advocates and governments, state and center as enablers from a policy framework can support, the whole focus on organic regenerative farming, are there one or two areas which you think you would like them to focus on?
So civil society in general, I think they are doing this bit which has contributed to all of this change happening at the back end. The awareness that's come in with people in general and they're choosing clean food, I think that's they're doing their part. With the government and other agencies, the simple process of certifying my farm as organic is very difficult. It's, they entail you to maintain an entire years of farm diary. Today, what did you do? How many man hours of labor did you put in? When did you irrigate? What did you apply? Now, entire years of data to be maintained. There's an audit which happens every year. And after third year, you get a certified farm that you can call organic and output from that.
After the third year?
After the third year. And then every output that needs to be sold, you have to contact the certification body and obtain a transfer certificate for the same, which is documented. In the interim year, if you even remove something from the farm without informing them or add something even for personal consumption without informing them, immediately everything is under scrutiny. So it's very difficult. It's designed in a way where no simple farmer, no educated farmer can do it with ease. There's a large fee for it. So I pay a huge sum for certifying my farm as organic. So I think making that process easier, and instead of calling it organic farming, if you can change the model and call it just farming, and people who do conventional farming call it chemical farming, I think that would change the narrative a lot. So
it's like ease of doing regenerative agriculture. I mean, almost like we talk about ease of doing business, ease of doing regenerative agriculture or organic farming. I mean, it's almost that's what you're saying, because it's and you talked about a fee as well, which I'm supposing balances the premium that organic farming gets at one level.
Yeah, the premium is there because there's a loss in productivity when you switch to farming naturally. The yield decreases in the initial lot for a couple of years at least. It never matches the yield that a chemical farm will get, and that needs to be compensated in some fashion. And that's why there's a price differential, apart from the fact that there's a certification fee and there are other aspects.
Yeah. So one other concept. I mean, we depend on monsoons for agriculture, right? From an organic standpoint, from an organic farming standpoint, how do the weather interventions, and weather is also becoming very unpredictable now. Does it also influence what your output is?
It does influence what my output is, and it influences my output even more if I am a conventional farmer, because the kind of farming that farmers do now, chemical-based farming, is not climate change resilient. The kind of farming that we are doing in terms of organic, sustainable, you call it, there are many other names. There is biodynamic, there is permaculture. These farm and the soil is more climate change resilient.
Right.
When you work on the soil and you increase its porosity and you increase its biodiversity and soil microbiology, you can absorb more water in a flood year. The soil holds water in a drought year. You don't have as many issues as a conventional farmer has. There is integrated pest control that happens when you do mixed cropping kind of farming. So your pest management happens better. I'll give you a classic case. A couple of years back, I think around 6 to 7 years back, in a leading newspaper, there was a headline that said there was this worm which destroyed over 11,000 acres of cotton farming in Punjab. And overnight, it was a huge disaster. In that entire 11,000 acres, there were, I think, some 9 or 10 acres of a farmer who was farming sustainably and with native variety cotton seeds. And he was the only guy who sustained this. So I believe increasingly with extreme climate events that are happening, you need to move to a model that is more climate change resilient. And this kind of farming, natural farming, is more climate change resilient.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And, I think, we talk about weather pattern shifts, etc. I mean, the fact that this is more resilient is I think that there ought to be a lot more focus on this. And to the previous question, if we can make it easier for you and others to do this, we talk about climate shifts and all that. That also gets mitigated to a large extent. But now let me come to Satyajit, the last section, and this is about you and your brother making that decision. I'm going to go back, and you working with him over the years. And I did say that I would like to touch upon that. I mean, how has it been to do this in a family setup, right? I mean, working together. Your brand is called True Brothers. Did you divide responsibilities, or did you say that we'll do things together, or does he take part of the brand building and you take part of the farming? How does it work between the two of you?
So, yeah, good question. So, fortunately, we were together in a boarding school.
Right.
So, more than brothers, we have been, boarders in a school where you had to remain together. Life was a bit difficult in those days in boarding schools. And so we had a very good understanding of each other.
Right.
And Ajinkya, my younger brother, quit first to do farming. Farming was always on my mind, but I thought, one fine day I will do it when I have done my, job or whatever. But when he quit and he started doing farming, and he was facing those challenges, in 2 years, I went to help him of sorts, and when I left my job and started doing farming.
Right.
Once on the ground, both of us did first-hand farming. Both of us intermittently did the farmers markets and the brand building that was happening. But today, since the operations are pretty large, he handles the back end. So operations and finance he takes care of, and I take care of marketing and business growth. And both of us, our passion is farming.
Right.
So it's not a job, it's not a responsibility. It is something that we love doing. Both of us intermittently put our time whenever we get into our farm and into farmer development.
Right. And your parents love it, the fact that both the sons...
Initially, they didn't love it because my dad, being a farmer, invested all his money in educating us and putting us away from the farm, and told us never come back to the village. So when we both decided to come back, it was a huge shock for him.
Right.
He absolutely didn't love it. For a long time, he was on our head that you've done the wrong thing. No one comes back to the village. People want to get out from the village. And having such good jobs, they'll have come back to the village. Only recently, I think a couple of years back, he started seeing the attention that we're getting, the employment that we're generating, the respect that we're getting, for doing something unconventional and for farming. He's not said it, but I think he likes it now.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So my last question is really, I spoke about your parents. You came back to your hometown, you said, right? And there has to be a feeling of community. There has to be, because when you do something like this, there is an uplift for the whole community, and the surrounding area very, very important. How has the ecosystem supported you or challenged you in your journey?
Oh no, that was one of the inspirations also for us to do it, because like they say, that it takes a village to raise a child. And when we got our jobs and so-called our way out of the village, we felt we were being selfish by just looking after our own jobs and our own families. And if we really had the intellectual capacity, we should go back and do something for the village. So that was a feeling always there. When we got this opportunity of doing it in our village, we were absolutely excited. The kind of support we have got from our village folks is absolutely amazing. Yeah. I mean, no holds barred. They have supported us during COVID. Before that, even now, majority of the hands that work on the farm and in the mega kitchen that we have are all from my own village. We have helped raise their incomes, and we have started a foundation which gives back in many aspects to the villagers out there.
Right.
The aspect of community is something that makes living and doing all of this very meaningful for us also. The fact that we could, I could have stayed in a city and done a job and earned a lot of money.
Yeah.
But the fact that I'm doing it in my village, and along with me earning my buck, I'm helping 400-500 other families. That is unparalleled.
I'm sure that gives you a lot of happiness as well.
Absolutely.
Not just for yourselves, but for the community also, you were able to do so much.
Absolutely.
Satyajit, I must say it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm really glad that you came in. And we all keep talking about business and everything else that goes with it and the disruptions and so on and so forth. This really has been a very refreshing conversation for me, and I learned a lot. And hopefully I'll be more mindful of what I eat myself, and hopefully we can create greater awareness about both what the industry needs, for this to flourish, and awareness amongst the customers as well as to how they can benefit from, and not just for themselves, also for the land that we love so much.
Yeah, I think more than half of India depends on farming. So the fact that you all give me an opportunity to come and talk, in a way I represent them to an extent, and I'm glad that you're looking at farmers and agriculturists to come and talk on your platform. Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Agriculture rarely makes headlines unless there's a crisis. But beneath the surface, the real story is slower and more complex. It's about incentives, trade-offs, margins, soil cycles, labor realities, and long-term bets that won't pay off overnight. Conversations like this remind us that building within India's food system isn't romantic. It's operationally demanding, economically fragile, and deeply interconnected with policy and climate. So as consumers, founders, investors, or policymakers, the question isn't just what we want to eat, it's what kind of system we are willing to support. Satyajit, thank you for an honest and nuanced discussion. It's been a pleasure.